you okay?
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. What was it like working with Sophia?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, she is such a pro, and she's an experienced hand at this now. She's very beautiful, and she looks younger than I do. I'm playing someone like 5 years older than her in the film, and I think she's like, what is it, 6, 7 years older than I am, and has been doing it for basically on a high level for like a decade now. But what's brilliant about that is that she was already a fully formed person. I think she was like 21 maybe when she first like had major success, and so it's not like she's very connected to the world and to news and affair, and current affairs, and is also like she's an advocate for maybe I want to say the UN. I want to say she's an ambassador at the UN. She's a very impressive woman. And yet has also been working for a decade in this industry to massive success. And I mean, like, this year is like the year of Sophia Carson. It seems, she's in absolutely everything.
Yeah.
But we had a great time. She's very easy to work with, and was also very professional, and she's the lead in that. It's about both of us, but she is the lead in that film, and also an executive producer. And I think that's a difficult thing to do when the two of you are in every day, but one of you has higher status as an actor and as a producer. She's technically my boss and my co-worker, and yeah, it didn't feel like that ever, and I think that's a testament to her and how she carries herself. But we had tons of fun, and yeah, there you go.
Over COVID, I presume auditioning and how you develop chemistry, your approach would sort of have to change because it's over a screen. How did you kind of change and adapt to that? And do you find it more difficult doing it across the screen?
Yeah, good question. So you're very right to say that. So yeah, I mean, in COVID, it was so difficult. Also, the industry, as many industries have, has changed, because before maybe 1 in 2 auditions were meetings in person, and now I would say 1 in 20 auditions are meetings in person. And often with projects, what happens is there's usually an initial self-tape stage, and then you might be asked to either self-tape again or come into the room and meet the casting director. And then if you get past that stage, then you might be asked to come back and meet with the casting director and the director and maybe a couple of producers. And then if you get past that stage, then there might be a chemistry test. And that just means that, in my experience, often that means that someone has already been cast and you're one of 2 or 3 or 5 people reading opposite them to see what happens. I have had now, I don't know how many chemistry tests in my life, and I have still to this day have never gotten a job where the chemistry test has been over Zoom. Because I just can't. I haven't quite cracked it. I don't think it's possible. I was once doing a chemistry test, and maybe I shouldn't say that actually. I was doing I was going to give you a bit of detail, but then I think not that anyone would ever, I don't know. Anyway, I was doing it on Zoom, and you know how on Zoom, someone has your camera, like mine is right now, is like a tiny little square in the corner.
Yeah.
for whatever reason, often it's me and someone else on Zoom, and maybe like 5 or 6 producers or something like that, and the director and the casting director, whatever, and they all turn their cameras off, and then it's just the two of you. But then one of them had pressed screen record, and because I was the person auditioning, because they pressed screen record for me and everyone else, my screen was pinned, and the person that I was reading with became this little tiny square in the corner. And so I was then doing this chemistry test, looking at my own face, like with a second delay, and trying to have chemistry with this little thing in the corner. And I'm short-sighted as well, and I didn't have my glasses. And I was like, I can't barely hear you. There's a delay. I'm looking at myself. I can't even see you. It's so difficult. Yeah. But with Sophia, case in point, I mean, I got the job in the end, so it wasn't on Zoom, and it was really lovely actually. I went into this place called Spotlight Studios in central London, and met with the casting director and the director Ian and Sophia, and we had a meeting and we had a chat, and it was very lovely and informal. And then actually what was genius was and they'd done this with the other guys who had gone in before me. What they did was they set up 2 cameras, and we went over, and there was a table, and there were 2 chairs, and so like we sat like that, and the cameras are there, and maybe Ian and the casting director are here, and they said, right, before we do the scenes, there were 2 scenes, I want you guys to improv. Which I'm always like, what? Sorry.
No.
Yeah, exactly. And they said, yeah, we want you guys to improv. Sophia has a secret, and I want you to find out what the secret is. Go.
What?
Yeah. And I was like, okay then. What the hell am I going to do? But it was great because, it just, it gives you a goal that is outside of yourself. I'm like, right, well, I'm going to coax this secret out. And the whole point was, be playful, see how you guys interact organically. And then by the time that we started the scenes, we had already sort of understood what the vibe was between us. And so we weren't just going straight off the bat cold, not understanding how each other act. I think it was a really cleverly facilitated audition, and I'm very glad that it was, and I'm also very glad that it was in person, because you're right, it is, to sum that massive story up, I find it impossible, because the whole point of chemistry is that it's not about you, it's about the other person, and the other person's opinion should be that it's not about them, it's about me. And if our attention is on each other, then we're outside of ourselves and we're listening, and it becomes this thing that is greater than the sum of its parts. That's the whole point. It's very difficult to do that over Zoom.
With the role of King George in Queen Charlotte,
playing that role was your first major role. Representing mental illness in the way you did, that's a lot of responsibility, and I think the way you handled it was so incredible. But did you feel a sense of responsibility playing such a role, especially in periodic drama where you don't see mental illness represented necessarily as much?
Yeah. You know what? It's a good question. It's because it's not necessarily something. Whoever you're playing, you're always going to be representing some subsection of society, and some people that will feel represented by, whether it's your skin color or your nationality or your job or your character trait, whatever it is, there will be people that see you in that role and go, oh, that character makes me feel seen, or it makes me feel, I see myself in that character for whatever reason. So you're always going to be representing some people. But mental health is such a stigmatized and complex thing. So of course, yeah, absolutely I did. I would say what I felt more though, and what made it slightly easier, was that I had all this source material with George the Third, and I felt more a responsibility to him, to to make sure that I felt like I was giving him a voice properly, and doing something accurately for him, rather than a whole group of people. I think also the greatest respect that you can pay to any group of people that will feel represented for, again, anyway, it could be like, that character tells jokes when they feel awkward, and I watch that and I go, oh, I do that, that's me, so whatever it is, but so and in this case it's mental illness, and I think the highest respect and highest regard that you can pay to whatever group of people it is to not play into the universality of it, and focus on the specifics, because he wasn't representing mental health. He was a man suffering, in my opinion, with mania with psychosis. And so as long as I go, okay, well, he's suffering with this specific thing, and this is how it manifests, and who do I speak to understand that properly, and what do I do with my body to convey that, and what state do I get my head into to try and accurately do that, and as long as I do the specifics of that tiny little thing, then the rest will take care of itself. Whereas if I try and go, oh, do you know what? There are so many different people that will be affected by this, positively if I do it well, negatively if I do it badly, and so let me try and put something in there for everyone. There'll be nothing in there for anyone if I do that, and so really, the way to pay respect is to almost temporarily disregard everything, and to focus on the specifics. I think same way if you're playing football, you're not thinking let me shoot from 45 yards to really please the fan. You're thinking, right, let me just get everything, let me make sure my first touch is good, first pass is okay, let me help this team in whatever way I can, and then after the game's finished, then see if the fans love what I did, and respect. I respected them and put my effort in, rather than thinking, let me do something for you. But that's such a rogue analogy.
I like it. You have worked with so many amazing people. Is there someone specific that you would like to work with in the future, or that you possibly are going to?
I mean, there's a couple of people that are technically attached to things, attached to projects that I'm also attached to. But I can't. I mean, maybe I could say, but I actually can't say. But I also there was a film that I was meant to be doing that is no longer happening, at least not for a while, because it's an indie, and sometimes funding falls through. And there were a couple of people in that I was really excited to work with, and sometimes it just doesn't happen. So it's really it's really difficult. But I would love to my favorite director, and I've said this so many different times, but my favorite director is Christopher Nolan. So I would really love to work with him. And I also just watched, this is really embarrassing, I just watched Manchester by the Sea for the first time. If you guys have seen it, but I would also really love to work with Michelle Williams. I think that's her name. Who is amazing. Well, everyone's amazing in that. But anyway, those two.
Thank you so much for taking to do that. Enjoy the rest of your holiday. I'm very jealous, even though.
Well, honestly.
Oh, sorry, it's really sunny in Manchester as well. I won't put you through there.
We were laughing. We were saying we've just left beer garden weather for this. We're about to go for a 10k run.
Wow.
And I don't know if you've been to Lisbon, but it's like.
I'll cool you down. Yeah, it's really, isn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, so wish me luck.
Thank you so much. Thank you.